guys, this is Alex. For those of you wondering what my video is all about, I am a confusing girl living in a confusing world. So I like to put theorizations on everything that I find confusing to keep everything structured and clear and myself sane. So on this one though, I would like to put theorizations on couple finance. The story goes, 2 years ago, my boyfriend and I, we were still in uni. We were a couple living together and literally spending every single minute together. But all our bills were clearly split and finance completely separated. Well, at this point of life, we both have a full-time job and earning self-sufficient incomes, and we're both considering moving our relationship one step further. So I guess this gold Dutch everything, exacting couple finance that we used to adopt doesn't really sit well between a couple who are meaningfully engaged in a caring and loving partnership. Back in the days when our parents were supporting our educations and life expenses, we were committed to pay for our own stuff, regardless if it's home appliances, electronics, groceries or takeout. Well, as our life intertwined further, exacting couple finance seems to be the hurdles to former partnerships. It almost felt like we were just flatmates living together rather than partners helping each other through a mutual life. So we reckon it's time that we sit down to brainstorm a proper solution for better couple finance. And that's exactly the moment when I realized, oh god, couple finance is a lot harder and more complicated than I thought it would be. Well, just think about it for a sec. Couple finance, it needs to be tailored to suit each different household situations. And for people in the same relationships, they may just have very different consumptions, behavior and preferences. So after days of discussions and months of trials, my boyfriend and I, we are luckily settled on this doubled layer approach to couple finance. So by double layered approach, we are committed to both a 50-50 split on essential mutual expenditure combined with utility-based proportional contributions on discretionary mutual consumptions. I know probably none of these make any sense to you now, but I promise I'll come to explain in detail later. Okay, I want to start with putting different broad categories of couple finance onto a spectrum for you to identify where on that spectrum matches the best to your situations and to where on that spectrum you would be hoping to move yourself to. So this couple finance spectrum is defined by the two extremes, with exacting couple finance on the one end and indifferent couple finance on the other end. And most importantly, lofting finance sitting comfortably in the middle. Let's start with exacting couple finance. What does it mean? Well, I guess the name sort of entails its meaning. Basically, every single transactions are split exactly according to consumptions or ownership. Imagine in a joint meal scenario in a restaurant, it's not just the head count equal split that most people would do in the joint meal. Considering that we're talking about extreme here, we're talking about the fuzziest details of figuring out who exactly have what dishes and by how much. Applying that kind of approach to couple finance, it's like the complete separations in finance. Another defining feature of exacting couple finance is also the absence of shared finance goal. Well, because everything is split so clearly, it is more likely each individual within their partnership would pursue their own financial goal rather than having a shared finance goal to strive towards jointly. Well, on the other end of my spectrum, I call it indifferent finance. First and foremost, it is characterized by non-existence of a shared overall financial plan. But the adoption of indifferent couple finance could be the result of different couple situations. One of the possible situations that leads to indifferent finance could be huge couple income inequality, or since the breadwinner is earning significantly more than the other half, income-wise, the higher earner just ended up paying for everything. Another possible reasons could be in a couple situations where money is not a matter of concern to either of the party. Both parties have or had paid for mutual stuff, but since money is not a matter of concern, neither go far enough to think about tracking or splitting the bills. So that's indifferent finance. Well, I think for most of us, the regular people, we mostly don't want to engage in exacting financial management every single day with your beloved partner. Neither have we reached the stage where we can just buy stuff for ourselves or our partners without looking at the price tags. So we need to figure something out in between the two extremes so that we don't fall into either being exacting or indifferent towards sharing life financially as a loving couple. Thus, I coined the middle ground as love team finance. So what defines a love team finance? Firstly, yes to shared financial plan. The two of you are very clear about how much to spend on essentials and how much to allocate for discretionary consumptions in a certain amount of time, say a year or a month. And also how much the two of you together or individually are aiming to save in order to pay for big ticket items such as a house or a trip abroad or raising kids. Secondly, yes to a mutual sense of financial responsibility. I think that's the basis of successful execution of a shared financial plan. So both people in the relationship should have the respect of consulting the other people before making major financial decisions and share the consequences, good or bad. Thirdly, yes to the coexistence of joint finance and personal finance. This could be in the form of joint bank account and personal bank accounts. By joint, you have a common pool of money that is mutually managed and mutually supervised. Meanwhile, by personal, each individual is also left with the freedom and privacy with a personal pocket. Well, personally, what I consider to be important here is that the joint account should be holding the great majority of the couple income so that meaningful and significant financial decision in life can be made together. Okay, so that's my spectrum in theory. I want to have some samples of couple finance in the real world. So I did a bit of a field work. I was looking at online forum to see how the netizens manage their couple finance, and I was also asking successful couples that I know in real life in terms of their experience of managing mutual money together. Or the empirical data / narratives I gather from the real world could be broadly summarized into three main kinds. So for the first kind, there is a joint account and there is personal accounts. Joint account is for mutual consumption, personal is for personal discretionary consumptions. What makes it unique though is that the respective contribution to the joint account is proportional to the contributor's income. Say for example, I earn 50k per year and my partner earns 100k per year. Then I will be contributing half of what my partner is contributing into the joint account. For the second kind, similar situation with the coexistence of personal bank accounts and joint bank accounts. However, instead of having income proportional contribution, the couple will be doing equal contribution to the joint account regardless of income differences. So for the previous given example, although I'm earning half of what my partner is earning, I'm paying the same amount as my partner will be paying for mutual stuff. E.g. splitting rent, utility, council tax, blah blah blah. The third kind, which is also what have been adopted quite frequently between me and my partner, is for mutual consumption. Each party contributes the amount proportional to the utility that each could derive from buying or owning the product or services. Say for example, my partner is an absolute coffee enthusiast or nuts. He likes his coffee freshly grounded every single morning for his fine pullover coffee. Well, at the same time, I'm more of an instant coffee kind of girl, but I'll be very happy to have a couple of fine brew coffee once in a week. So the boy is proposing, let's purchase a premium electronic coffee grinder together so that both of us can have good coffee. But the problem is, if I were to split the price equally with him, obviously he would get so much more utility from the machine than I do. I do get utility from having that expensive machines, but it doesn't make economic sense to justify the price I'm paying for. So that's why proportional utility contributions makes more sense. So we split the purchase of this expensive coffee machine based on our relative utility, say 80 versus 20%. The purchase is made possible jointly, and each party is happy with the price they're paying for. Happy days! So here are the three scenarios that exist in the real world. It is interesting to think about whether all these make sense, or whether one of these is necessarily better than the other one. The first kind we talked about was respective contribution proportional to income. Well, from the very first look of it, it seems fair in the odd way because what you pay aligned with your purchasing power. So that sort of makes sense. But if you interpret from an economic perspective, I can easily invalidate such approach. Based on simple economic theory of demand and utility, for any rational economic agent, the price that the person is willing and happy to pay for should match the utility that the person can derive from the consumptions. Utility is subjective, so it should not be quantified by income level. Makes sense, right? That's not the only issue I have with this approach though. I think it's also bad simply because it is manifesting and reinforcing income inequalities in every single mutual purchases. And this really goes against the sense of equalness in the supportive partnerships. And yes, speaking of which, I should have mentioned equalness as one of the foundation of sustaining love-team finance. The second and the third kind, these two stand alone. Both have their weaknesses, but these two together make the perfect combination of love-team finance. At least in my opinion. And for background, this combination has been working really well for me and my partner, and that's exactly the double layer approach I mentioned in the very beginning of this video. The reason why I think these two kinds should coexist is because love life is about joint effort, it's about being supportive for each other, but it is also about having the personality and differences to complement each other. This should also be reflected in finance management. As we talked about previously, that the second kind of couple finance involves both parties chipping equally for mutual essential consumptions. I think committing to 50-50 split on essential mutual consumption such as rent, utility, toilet rolls is a very good way to reinstate this idea of equalness in a partnership, and it makes life easier. Everything is split in half. No complicated mathematical calculation involved. If you were to adopt such approach and such approach only, it is not without drawbacks. In order to sustain equal split on everything, both parties may have to make certain compromises on mutual purchases. Say for example, my partner prefers non-scented washing detergent, but I prefer a strongly scented one. So in order to meet middle ground, we would opt for a lightly scented product. So in theory, this approach would work if the net differences in utilities is maintained around zero. So we get equal split for the essential mutual consumptions. We also bring in utility proportional contribution for discretionary mutual consumptions. A lot of the times, both people in the partnerships may be interested in buying something, but the extent of willingness to pay for it can be very different. That's because how we evaluate if something is worth the value is subjective and based on personal preferences. By allowing utility proportional contribution, you are establishing a bidding systems where either party in the relationship can put forward financial decision proposals with personal inclinations. I think it's a brilliant system to have because it allows space for differences and personality in the relationships, which is very well needed. But remember, this is not the private money in your personal bank account that we're talking about. You can always buy stuff that you can afford and you love with your own private money. Those are private discretionary consumptions, no intervention needed. What makes this joint fund for discretionary mutual consumption valuable is that it could enable financing purchases that would have otherwise been unsustainable or unaffordable for a single person. Meanwhile, avoiding potential conflict from the free riding issues, which I had a lot in the past. I think I'm quite guilty of free riding a lot of my boyfriend's fancy techie gadget. As said, this combined approach is what I have been using in my relationships. My boyfriend and I, we're now living in the UK. There's a lot of banks or fintechs offering joint account services that you can choose from. Well, we chose one of the more techy banks to set up our joint account. So every single month, we would wire in an agreed same amount of money to the joint account in lump sum. This money would only be used to pay for the essential consumptions that we commit to equal split. This includes our rent, utility, and all sorts of softwares or service subscriptions. and that lump sum we wire into the joint account each month is almost 70 to 80% of our disposable income. For any discretionary mutual consumptions that either one of us feel like getting the other people involved in the purchase, we always have the freedom of proposing the idea and negotiating with the share of contributions. But of course, the success of this approach comes with certain assumptions. It works well for us because we are earning more or less the same level of incomes, we're still in the same tax brackets, luckily, and we share a really similar financial behavior and lifestyle choices. That automatically brings in the question of, what if there's huge income inequalities between the couples? Can such couple have lofting finance at all? For example, in one scenario, one person could be earning significantly more, but that person shared the same lifestyle and financial behavior as his or her other half. Say, I earn 100k a year this time, but my partner earns 50k per year. Lofting finance can still work because I might very well be a very big money saver. I'm perfectly content with sharing the lifestyle that is within the comfortable range of my partner's affordability. So the contingency here is having a similar lifestyle and financial behaviors. Okay, so what if the high earner wants to have a fancier lifestyle that is out of the means of his or her partner? Well, in that case, whether lofting finance could still work would ultimately come down to bargaining power. If it's me, I'm earning twice the wage of my partner's, well, I'll still be happy to pay a bit more for a more expensive lifestyle for the two of us. We can still make financial plan and big financial goals together. We can still make contribution for mutual consumption, although it might be skewed. Someone may challenge calling it lofting finance by saying that it's against the sense of equalness in a partnership. But that can be easily dismissed because the equalness that was referred to was assessed by the quantifiable incomes or wealth, and by those only. It can still be an equal lofting finance despite the income inequalities because the non-quantifiable emotional and sentimental values can keep the balance balanced. Okay, this is about the full video on the theorization of couple finance. If you like these videos or you find any of the stuff I talked about of some teeny meeny value to you, please like and subscribe. This remains a theory because I haven't had a big enough database to make it a legit social science research. And I also haven't touched much on the technical tips / suggestions on how to actually implement lofting finance. One thing I'm sure though, there's certainly a wide varieties of helpful softwares or services that you can resort to for joint finance. For example, my boyfriend and I, we were trialing with this app called YNAB to bookkeeping all our money transactions. I think YNAB was connected to our joint bank account, so the software would have all the data synced from our joint bank account. But we're dropping out because we feel like it was too advanced for our current financial need, so it was a bit unnecessarily time consuming. Well, but if you are looking for really advanced accounting tools, that might be a very good fit. We also use the app called Splitwise to keep record of unsettled monies. But ever since it started charging premium for a lot of the essential features that I used to like and was given for free, I'm looking for alternative. Do leave a comment if you have any recommendations on good couple finance softwares or tools. Until then, see you next time.